Untouchables or the Children of India's Ghetto by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Part 1, Chapter 4, The Indian Ghetto, the Center of Untouchability, Outside the Fold. What is the position of the untouchables under the Hindu social order? To give a true idea of their position is the main purpose of this chapter. But it is not easy to strike upon the best means of conveying a realistic and concrete picture of the way the untouchables live, or rather are made to live, under the Hindu social order, to one who has no conception of it. One way is to draw a model plant, so to say, of the Hindu social order and show the place given to the untouchables therein. For this, it is better and necessary to go to a Hindu village. Nothing can serve our purpose better. The Hindu village is a working plant of the Hindu social order. One can see there the Hindu social order in operation, in full swing. The average Hindu is always in ecstasy whenever he speaks of the Indian village. He regards it as an ideal form of social organization to which he believes there is no parallel anywhere in the world. It is claimed to be a special contribution to this theory of social organization for which India may well be proud of. How fanatic are the Hindus in their belief in the Indian village as an ideal piece of social organization may be seen from the angry speeches made by the Hindu members of the Indian Constituent Assembly in support of the contention that the Indian Constitution should recognize the Indian village as its base of the constitutional pyramid of autonomous administrative units with its own legislature, executive, and judiciary. From the point of view of the untouchables, there could not have been a greater calamity. Thank God the Constituent Assembly did not adopt it. Nevertheless, the Hindus persist in their belief that the Indian village is an ideal form of social organization. This belief of the Hindus is not ancestral belief, nor does it come from the ancient past. It is borrowed from Sir Charles Metcalfe, a civil servant of the East India Company. Metcalfe, who was a revenue officer, in one of his revenue papers described the Indian village in the following terms. The village communities are little republics, having nearly everything they want within themselves and almost independent of any foreign relations. They seem to last when nothing else lasts. Dynasty after dynasty tumbles down, revolution succeeds to revolution. Hindu, Pathan, Mughal, Maratha, Sikh, English are all masters in turn, but the village communities remain the same. In times of trouble, they arm and fortify themselves. When hostile army passes through the country, the village communities collect their cattle within their walls and let the enemy pass unprovoked. If plunder and devastation be directed against themselves and the forces employed be irresistible, they flee to friendly villages at a distance. But when the storm has passed over, they return and resume their occupations. If a country remains for a series of years and the scene of continued pillage and massacre, so that the village cannot be inhabited, the scattered villagers nevertheless return wherever their power of peaceable possession revives. A generation may pass away, but the succeeding generation will return. The sons will take the place of their fathers, the same site for the village, the same position for their houses, the same lands will be reoccupied by the descendants of those who were driven out when the village was repopulated. And it is not a trifling matter that will drive them out, for they will often maintain their post through times of disturbances and convulsion, and acquire strength sufficient to resist pillage and oppression with success. This union of the village communities, each one forming a little state in itself, has, I conceive, contributed more than any other cause to the preservation of the people of India, through all the revolutions and changes which they have referred, and is in a high degree conducive to their happiness and to the enjoyment of a great portion of freedom and independence. Having read this description of an Indian village given by a high placed member of the governing class, the Hindus felt flattered and adopted his view as a welcome compliment. In adopting this view of the Indian village, the Hindus have not done any justice to their intelligence or their understanding. They have merely exhibited the weakness common to all subject people. Since many foreigners are led to accept this idealistic view of the Indian village, it would be better to present a realistic picture of the society as one finds in an Indian village. The Indian village is not a single social unit. It consists of castes. But for our purposes, it is enough to say 1. The Indian population in the village is divided into two sections, touchables and untouchables. 2. The touchables form the major community and the untouchables a minor community. 3. The touchables live inside the village and the untouchables live outside the village in separate quarters. 4. Economically, the touchables form a strong and powerful community while the untouchables are a poor and dependent community. 5. Socially, the touchables occupy the position of a ruling race, while the untouchables occupy the position of a subject race of hereditary bondsmen. What are the terms of associated life on which the touchables and untouchables live in an Indian village? In every village, the touchables have a code which the untouchables are required to follow. This code lays down the acts of omissions and commissions which the touchables treat as offences. The following is a list of such offences. 1. The untouchables must live in separate quarters away from the habitation of the Hindu. It is an offence for the untouchables to break or evade the rule of segregation. 2. The quarters of the untouchables must be located towards the south, since the south is the most inauspicious of the four directions. A breach of this rule shall be deemed to be an offence. 3. The untouchable must observe the rule of distance pollution or shadow of pollution as the case may be. It is an offence to break the rule. 4. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to acquire wealth such as land or cattle. 5. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to build a house with tiled roof. 6. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to put on a clean dress, wear shoes, put on a watch or gold ornaments. 7. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to give high-sounding names to their children, their names be such as to indicate contempt. 8. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to sit on a chair in the presence of a Hindu. 9. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to ride on a horse or a palanquin through the village. 10. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community to take a procession of untouchables through the village. 11. It is an offence for a member of the untouchability not to salute a Hindu. 12. It is an offence for a member of the untouchability to speak a cultured language. 13. It is an offence for a member of the untouchable community if he happens to come into the village on a sacred day which the Hindus treat as the day of fast, and at or about the time of the breaking of the fast, to go about speaking, on the grounds that their breath is held to foul the air and the food of the Hindu. 14. It is an offence for an untouchable to wear the outward marks of a touchable and pass himself as a touchable. 15. An untouchable must conform to the status of an inferior, and he must wear the marks of his inferiority for the public to know and identify him as such. A. Having contemptible name. B. Not wearing clean clothes. C. Not having a tiled roof. D. Not wearing silver and gold. A contravention of any of these rules is an offence. Next come the duties which the court requires members of the untouchable community to perform for the touchable. Under this head, the following may be mentioned. 1. A member of an untouchable community must carry a message of any event in the house of a Hindu, such as death or marriage, to his relatives living in other villages, no matter how distant these villages may be. 2. An untouchable must work at the house of a Hindu when a marriage is taking place, such as breaking fuel and going on errands. 3. An untouchable must accompany a Hindu girl when she is going from her parents' house to her husband's village, no matter how distant it is. 4. When the whole village community is engaged in celebrating a general festivity such as Holi or Dasera, the untouchables must perform all menial acts which are preliminary to the main observance. 5. On certain festivities, the untouchables must submit their women to members of the village community to be made the subject of indecent fun. Duties have to be performed without remuneration. To realize the significance of these duties, it is important to note why they have come into being. Every Hindu in the village regards himself as a superior person above the untouchable. As an overlord, he feels it absolutely essential to maintain his prestige. This prestige he cannot maintain unless he has at his command a retinue to dance attendance on him. It is in the untouchable that he finds a ready routine, which is at his command and for what he does not have to pay. The untouchable, by reason of their helplessness, cannot refuse to perform these duties, and the Hindu villager does not hesitate to exact them, since they are so essential to the maintenance of his prestige. These offences are not to be found in the penal code enacted by the British government. Nonetheless, so far as the untouchables are concerned, they are real. A breach of any of them involves sure punishment for the untouchables. How they are enforced will be clear from chapter 5 and 6. Another important thing to note is that the punishment for these offences is always collective. The whole community of untouchables is liable for punishment, though the offence may have been committed by an individual. How do the untouchables live? How do they earn their living? Without a knowledge of the ways of earning a livelihood which are open to the untouchables, it would not be possible to have a clear idea of their place in Hindu society. In an agricultural country, agriculture can be the main source of living. But this source of earning a living is generally not open to the untouchables. This is so for a variety of reasons. In the first place, purchase of land is beyond their means. Secondly, even if an untouchable has the money to purchase land, he has no opportunity to do so. In most parts, the Hindus would resent an untouchable coming forward to purchase land and thereby trying to become the equal of the touchable class of Hindus. Such an act of daring on the part of an untouchable would not only be frowned upon but might easily invite punishment. In some parts, they are disabled by law from purchasing land. For instance, in the province of Punjab, there is a law called the Land Alienation Act. This law specifies the communities which can purchase land, and the untouchables are excluded from the list. The result is that in most parts, the untouchables are forced to be landless laborers. As laborers, they cannot demand reasonable wages. They have to work for the Hindu farmer for such wages as their masters choose to give. On this issue, the Hindu farmers can combine to keep the wages to the lowest level possible, for it is to their interest to do so. On the other hand, the untouchables have no holding power. They must earn or starve. Nor have they any bargaining power. They must submit to the rate fixed or suffer violence. The wages paid to the untouchables are either paid in cash or in corn. In parts of the Uttar Pradesh, the corn given to the untouchables as their wages is called gobaraha. Gobaraha means privy corn, or corn contained in the dung of an animal. In the month of March or April, when the crop is fully grown, reaped and dried, it is spread on the threshing floor. Bullocks are made to tread over the corn in order to take the corn out of the husk by the pressure of their hooves. While treading over the corn, the bullocks swallow up the corn as well as the straw. As their intake is excessive, they find it difficult to digest it. Next day, the same corn comes out of their stomach along with their dung. The dung is strained, and the corn is separated and given to the untouchable workmen as their wages, which they convert into flour and make into bread. When the agricultural season is over, the untouchables have no employment and no means of earning a living. In such seasons, they subsist by cutting grass and firewood from the jungle and sell it in a nearby town. Even when it is open, it depends upon the forest guard. Only if he is bribed will he let the untouchables to take some grass and firewood from the government forest. When it is brought to the town, they have always to face a buyer's market. The Hindus, who are the main body of buyers, will continue to conspire to beat down the wages. Having no power to hold out, the untouchables have to sell their stuff for whatever is offered to them. Oftentimes, they have to walk 10 miles each way from the village to the town and back to sell their stuff. There is no trade in which they are engaged themselves as a means of earning a livelihood. They have not the capital for it, and even if they had, no one else would buy from them. All these sources of earning are obviously precarious and fleeting. There is no security. There is only one secure source of livelihood open to the untouchables in some parts of the country known to me. It is the right to beg food from the Hindu farmers of the village. Every village has its machinery of administration. The untouchables of the village are hereditary menials employed in the village administration. As part of their remuneration, the whole body of untouchables get a small parcel of land assigned in the ancient past, which is fixed and is never increased, and which the untouchables prefer to leave uncultivated because of its excessive fragmentation. Coupled with this is given to them the right to beg for food. Shocking as it may seem, this has become a customary right for the untouchables, and even government takes into account the value of the food obtained by the untouchables by begging in fixing the remuneration of an untouchable if he were to be employed in government jobs. This right to beg for food from the touchables is now the principal means of livelihood for 60 million untouchables in India. If anyone were to move in a village after the usual dinner time, he will meet with a swarm of untouchables moving about the village, begging for food and uttering the formula. This statutory beggary as a means of livelihood for the untouchables has been reduced to a system. The untouchable families are attached to different touchable families in the village, as did the serfs and villains to the lords of the manors in medieval Europe. The untouchable families attached to the touchable families are at the command of the latter. This relationship has become so personal that one always hears a touchable speaking of an untouchable as my man, as though he was his slave. This relationship has helped to systemize and systematize this matter of giving food by the untouchables from the touchable households. This is the village republic of which the Hindus are so proud. What is the position of the untouchables in this republic? They are not merely the last, but are also the least. He is stamped as an inferior and is held down to the status by all ways and all means which a majority can command. This inferiority is the destiny not merely of an individual, but of the whole class. All untouchables are inferior to all touchables, irrespective of age or qualification. A touchable youth is above an aged untouchable, and an uneducated untouchable must rank below an illiterate touchable. The established order is the law made by the touchables. The untouchables have nothing to do with it, except to obey it and respect it. The untouchables have no rights against the touchables. For them, there is no equal right, no justice by which that which is due to the untouchables is allowed to them. Nothing is due to them except what the touchables are prepared to grant. The untouchables must not insist on rights. They should pray for mercy in favor and rest content with what is offered. This established order is a hereditary order both in status as well as in function. Once a touchable, always a touchable. Once an untouchable, always an untouchable. Once a Brahmin, always a Brahmin. Once a sweeper, always a sweeper. Under it, those who are born high remain high. Those who are born low remain low. In other words, the established order is based on an inexorable law of karma or destiny, which is fixed once and for all and can never be changed. This destiny has no relation to the merits of the individuals living under it. An untouchable, however superior he may be mentally and morally, is below an touchable in rank, no matter how inferior he may be mentally or morally. A touchable, however poor he may be, must always take rank above an untouchable, however rich he may be. Such is the picture of the inside life in an Indian village. In this republic, there is no place for democracy. There is no room for equality. There is no room for liberty, and there is no room for fraternity. The Indian village is the very negation of a republic. If it is a republic, it is a republic of the touchables, by the touchables, and for the touchables. The republic is an empire of the Hindu over the untouchable. It is a kind of colonialism of the Hindu designed to exploit the untouchable. The untouchables have no rights. They are there only to wait, serve, and submit. They are there to do or to die. They have no rights because they are outside the village republic, and because they are outside the so-called republic, they are outside the Hindu fold. This is a vicious cycle. But this is a fact which cannot be gainsaid. The end.